is a statistic that's often shared on social media that men are something like 6 times more likely to leave their wives after the wives receive a diagnosis for, I think it was cancer and multiple sclerosis. A couple of weeks ago, I came across this video where a woman was talking about this study. And she said basically they had fucked up the stats.
So the article that Rachel is probably referring to here, and I'll explain what I mean by probably shortly, is this one right here. In Sickness and in Health, Physical Illness as a Risk Factor for Marital Dissolution in Later Life. And the statistical error that Rachel alluded to was actually a coding error. Rather than removing every couple that simply dropped out of the study, they were misidentified as having gotten divorced. She exaggerated the divorce rate as a whole, owing to the fact that the large majority of those couples that dropped out were ones where it was the wife that was sick, dramatically overstated the likelihood that a healthy husband would leave his dying wife. And to the credit of the authors, to the journal, to the academic review process in general, this error was caught almost immediately. A retraction explaining the error was issued 1 month after it was published. And so you might be very reasonably wondering, especially if you had heard this before, that husbands are 6 times more likely to leave their dying wives than wives are to leave their dying husbands. Why didn't I know about the retraction? Well, at least in part, that old adage of a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth puts its shoes on applies here. News media absolutely loved this story. It was everywhere. And while all of these outlets also covered the retraction, I'll note here that while this headline still shows up in the Google search results, you have to actually open the article to see the retraction below. But wait, at the beginning of this video, I said that this is the study that Rachel is probably referring to. While the 2015 study probably got the most news coverage, it's not the only one. It also wasn't the first of its kind to suggest that men are more likely to leave their sick wives. A 2009 study of 515 couples found that if it was the wife who had cancer, that couple was 7 times more likely to divorce than if it were the husband. And this study has not been retracted. All that said, I still think that there is some reason to be a little bit skeptical, because there was no discussion between the researchers and the couples about why they divorced, who filed, and what were their reasons. Were finances, was insurance a factor? Might the dying spouse have qualified for even better coverage if they were single? Were they trying to protect family assets in bankruptcy? How many of those dying spouses just realized that they didn't want to spend the rest of their days in an unhappy relationship? The lack of awareness of that retraction has been a problem, yes, absolutely. The way that we continue to jump to conclusions that aren't at all supported by the data in these studies and then fail to ask the questions that would actually yield the information that we want to know is at least as big, if not a greater one.